All right, hello everyone. My name is Ty Everett. I'm the founding president of Project Babbage, and today we're going to be starting a new video series for the channel. Just a series of video tutorials where we're going to be showing how to build various pieces of technology and how to work with different components of the Project Babbage ecosystem in order to create new kinds of really cool apps. So in this first video, we're just going to be getting everything set up here. I'm going to assume that you have knowledge about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I'm going to assume that you know just a little bit of React, and I'll kind of help you along the way if you're new to that, and that you have a code editor installed. I'm not going to assume any knowledge in this tutorial about Bitcoin, blockchain technology of any kind, or anything like that, encryption, anything like that. I'm going to be covering everything you need to do in order to build a Bitcoin-powered application from nothing except for web technologies. So go learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Get your code editor installed so that you're ready to follow along here. And let's get started creating our very first Hello World Project Babbage Bitcoin-powered application. I'm going to open up my terminal here. What you need to do first is you need to install Node.js, and you need to have, I'm going to be using VS Code, Visual Studio Code, for my code editor. I'm using Mac OS, but of course you can use any platform you'd like. And so once you have Node.js installed, you're going to install globally using the npm command. So just npm install tacg, and you're going to use create React app. So if you already have Create React app installed, just like I do, you don't have to actually do this. But if you don't, then go ahead and press enter, and you'll have Create React app installed globally at the end of that kind of command. Then you're going to go into wherever you have your projects. So you can make a projects folder if you don't already have one. And then you're going to say Create React app. And you can call this Babbage Hello World. I'm going to call it Babbage Hello World Video because I actually wrote a blog post. So if you prefer to read a blog post and have this in written form rather than following a video tutorial, then you can go to projectbabbage.com/hello world, and that's hello-world, and you'll see a blog post version of this content. So because I already have the blog post kind of one written, I'm going to say Babbage Hello World Video. But if you don't, then you can just put Babbage Hello World, or you can call it whatever you want. So what this is going to do is it's just going to go through the basic, the Create React app setup process in the terminal here. So you don't have to know what any of this means if you're brand new to coding and just kind of wanting to get started with Bitcoin and creating Bitcoin-powered apps. This is all just output from a command called Create React app, and what it's doing here in the background is just setting up your new project. And so once this is finished, then I'm going to change my directory into the new project, and then I'll get kind of spun up with getting that created. So it looks to be just installing some new things, and I'm going to do what it says here. So Create React app. So we're going to cd into Babbage Hello World Video. And from here, I'm not going to use yarn because I like npm more, and I think npm works a little bit better. That's just my personal opinion, but you can use yarn or you can use npm as your package manager. And I'm just going to actually, at this point, what I'm going to do is open my Visual Studio Code. So no longer using the terminal here. I'm actually going to exit out of the terminal, and I'm going to put the terminal back at the bottom of my Visual Studio Code project. And from here, we can actually start to install some of the packages that are going to be necessary in order to use, in order to set up a Babbage application and build a Bitcoin-powered application. I'm going to make another terminal over there on the right as well, so I have two terminals. And I'm going to say npm run start. And once we see the browser window open up here, we've actually just set up a basic Create React app project. And so You're free to use any React stuff in this project. We can already edit the app.js file or just look at it at the beginning. And you can see that if you know React or anything about it, this should look pretty familiar. We have the basic, this is how you do a React component, and this is what it looks like on the screen. So any changes we save to this file will automatically update in the browser. And that's the important part here for kind of the first step in getting this project set up. So the first thing we're going to do, now that we have the React project kind of set up, is we're just going to go to the terminal and we're actually going to install, we're going to switch back to the actual terminal tab here. We're going to install the packages we need in order to make this into a Babbage app instead of just a React app. So we're going to install the Babbage Sdk, the Babbage React Prompt, and we're also going to install Material UI Core, which is just a UI kind of library to make things look a little pretty. So the Babbage Sdk is just a little piece of software that people can put in their apps to interact with Bitcoin and the blockchain and everything like that. And the Babbage prompt basically just makes sure before the app runs that a user, anybody using the app actually has the Babbage software installed on their computer. So what we're going to do here at the beginning is we're just going to set up the Babbage prompt so that the user can so that we're making sure that the app is only going to run once the user has installed the Babbage software. So we're going to import the prompt from Babbage React Prompt, and I guess I'll put a semicolon at the end here to comply with their style. And we're going to say prompt. So we're just wrapping the app. So this is our app. We're wrapping the app with the prompt, and we're going to say app name, and we can say hello world app. So there's that. And this is just going to wrap the prompt around the app. So now we can save this, and what should happen here, if we've done everything properly, the code says it's compiling, is that when we go back here and when we refresh the page, what's going to happen is it's actually going to take away our React app kind of boilerplate that they've set up for us, and instead it's going to ask us to launch Babbage Desktop. So Hello World app requires Babbage Desktop, and it's telling you to go download it. And if you already have Babbage Desktop downloaded on your computer, you can just launch it. And then immediately after launching Babbage Desktop, now we get our React kind of boilerplate project back. So now we have these packages kind of installed, and we have the beginning here. What we're going to do is we're actually just going to make a basic Hello World action. So in Babbage Desktop, we have these things called actions, and these actions are just transactions that are part of Bitcoin, and these are how people can interact with Bitcoin-powered applications. So we can see, several actions that I've taken here in Babbage Desktop. We want to be able to make a new action that actually puts some data on the blockchain. And in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to import create action from the Babbage Sdk. And having this imported here, it's also going to give us a little function that we can call, and calling that function will allow us to create a Babbage action. And the other thing we're going to want is a button from material UI/core. And the button is just because we want things to look, I think it should look a little bit better than using just a normal button. And later on when we do some more UI stuff, Material UI has some really cool things in their application. So we're just going to delete everything on line 10 and below until the closing tag for this header. And we're going to replace that with button. And we can say it's a contained button. We can say that the color equals primary, so that way it makes it like a blue color. And we can say onClick equals handle click. So this is just a basic, and then we'll put a label for a button inside, and we'll say, I don't know, create action, or create first action. So we've got this button here, and we've added a click handler. Now, handle click is not yet defined, so we're going to come up here, and we're just going to make a JavaScript variable, const handle click equals, and we'll just make an arrow function, it's called, and we'll make this an asynchronous function, meaning that we can have a thing called promise-based code, but basically that means we can just use a wait. So we're going to say result equals await, create action. So basically, whenever we click on this button, and then we're going to console.log our result, and we're also going to alert.txid, so the txid from the transaction. Basically, we're saying whenever we click on this button, which comes down here, it's going to run this function. And inside this function, we have a thing called create action, which we're calling from the Babbage Sdk. And I forgot a semicolon. I'm sure that's probably bugging some people. And one here and one here. See, I don't usually code with semicolons. So we need to pass some parameters into this function. The first of which is a description. So we need to describe what the action is that the user is doing. So in action-oriented programming, the user creates actions, and those actions describe their intent. And then it is the job of all applications to later take those actions and transform them into a good user experience based on the things that the user has done in the past. So for example, if you had a bookshelf application, a user could create a couple of actions for things like add, a book, I don't know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or something like that. Add all of these different other books to the bookshelf. And then later, the application's job is to take the fact that the user has intended for these certain books to be on the bookshelves as actions and grab those actions and put them together into a good user experience. So that way, no matter what bookshelf application the user uses in the future, the user has intended that their books are going to be on the shelf. And so any application would be able to incorporate that aspect and provide the user with a user-centric experience based on the things that specific user has done, not just the things that specific application has seen. So our first action is we're going to describe what it is that this action is doing. So we're create, and this is in present tense. All action descriptions should be in present tense. So create a hello world action. Oops, I added an extra space. And the next thing we need to do, you don't have to understand this yet. We're just saying these are the keys. Oops, primary signing. These are the keys that the user is going to use and the path on their key. This will be important later for permissioning and such things like that. But the key name and key path right now, you can just they have to be there, they're required, but in the next couple of videos, we will get to more of what that means and how to make use of it. So will be important later, but you can ignore it for now. This one, on the other hand, is where we're actually going to put the data we want to put on the blockchain. So the data is associated with the transaction, the Bitcoin transaction on the blockchain. So when we talk about Bitcoin is really two things. It is bits and coins. If you know what bits are in computer science, they're just information. And coins, of course, are money. So Bitcoin is just the unification of information and money in one sense. So we're not going to be dealing with the money part of Bitcoin, the coins yet. We're actually just going to be dealing with the information part of Bitcoin, the bits at the beginning. So we're going to be writing some information to the blockchain in our first action. So in programming, there's a thing called Base64 strings and normal strings. So this kind of up here is a normal string, right? And Base64 strings are a little bit, they're encoded in a different way. This data element needs to be in Base64. So data is an array of strings that are going to go onto the blockchain in the correct order. And we only want one string in this example. So we're just going to B to A, which is a built-in function in web browsers, is a function that takes in a normal string like we have up here, and it converts it into Base64. So that way we can use it inside of our actions and put it on the blockchain. So we're just going to say, hello Babbage, my name is Ty, right? So this is the data that's actually going to make it onto the blockchain when we create this action. And this action is then going to show up in the Babbage UI, and then we're taking it and we're taking the result of calling create action, and we're logging it to the console down here, and we're also putting it on the screen, or at least we're putting the TXID, the transaction ID of the Bitcoin transaction that we're going to create, onto the screen. So this is kind of the code for the Hello World tutorial. Now I'm just going to save the code, and do we have a warning or something? Wait, hang on. I thought I saw something down there. One second. Oh, it's just saying that logo is defined but never used. So I'm going to come up here and delete this because we have made some changes and we don't necessarily need that logo up there anymore. Now we're all green again, and we're looking at this button. So I'm going to hit F12 key on my keyboard to open up the JavaScript console. I'm going to switch over to the console tab. All of these errors we can actually ignore because they're not related to what we're dealing with. They're just kind of when the dialog was open before, I was trying to connect to Babbage Desktop, but it couldn't. And without further ado, we're just going to click this button. So clicking on the button is going to ask for authorization. It's saying that localhost would like to spend 99 Satoshis. If you hover over this, it's a very small amount. It's like 0.02 of a cent. That's not 0.02 of a dollar. That's actually that's 2% of 1 penny. So we're going to allow it. And if I've done everything properly here at the top here, we'll see a transaction ID. And this is kind of I'm going to copy this to my clipboard and I'll hit OK. That is the transaction ID of a Bitcoin transaction, which contains the data. It's actually on the blockchain now. The Bitcoin miners are going to mine this action into a block. And we've successfully created our hello world kind of transaction. So we logged to the console the TXID, and we also logged the literal Bitcoin transaction itself, which is the raw transaction string. So that's exactly what the miners are going to put into the blockchain. We don't really have to be worried about that, but I will do. I copied that to my clipboard. I'm going to go to a Bitcoin block explorer and just kind of show you here that if we paste this transaction ID in, we can see that it's unconfirmed. So the miners have not yet mined it because it was just kind of created. But it's a version 1 transaction. We can see that we've paid a transaction fee to give the miners a reason to mine it. And then if we come over here, we can actually look on the blockchain in this kind of transaction and see that text that we wrote. We wrote, some information. We wrote, hello Babbage, my name is Ty. And now on the blockchain itself, we can actually see that transaction. So I think that's pretty cool. And whoops, I've opened the wrong application there, so I'm going to quit out of it immediately. I will go back to Babbage Desktop, and we can see the same transaction ID. So this one is 99 Satoshis that I created 2 minutes ago. So that's obviously the right one, because earlier when I was doing the blog post, that was 8 hours ago. And this one here is also for 99 Satoshis. But it was created 2 minutes ago, just then. So that's the Hello World tutorial. Now you've successfully written your first transaction to the blockchain, and you've also gotten a bit of a familiarity with the basic concept of action-oriented programming in a Babbage app. You've successfully created a React project that you can use as a boilerplate to follow along with the other tutorials that I'm going to be creating in this series. And you'll be able to use it to create a unique Babbage application and actually make money from building a micropayment-powered Bitcoin application that leverages the blockchain in new and unique ways. So this is the beginning. It doesn't seem like much yet, but next time we're actually going to be taking these actions and making them into something that you can use to show your users kind of some feedback in your Babbage application. So this is Hello World. This is Project Babbage, and this is Bitcoin SV. I think it's pretty cool. We paid almost nothing for this transaction. If we hover over, 99 Satoshis, that's 2% of 1 penny that we've paid. And in return, we've got this transaction included in the blockchain, and we can use it to do some pretty cool things. So without further ado, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you for watching. My name is Ty Everett. I'm the founding president of Project Babbage, and I'm happy to be creating this series for showing people how to create some cool things, and hopefully reach out if you have any questions.